This is the Simi Sara Show on News Talk 980 CKNW, Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk.
So you've been listening to our series, which is called Journey to a Life of Recovery. In today's episode, we heard from two addicts who were discussing the moment that they acknowledged they had an issue with alcohol. That is absolutely critical, right? Is that is acceptance that maybe I need some help. But what happens after that? Well, to help us with that moment, Dr. Shahar Rabi joins us now, the Clinical Program Director at the Orchard Recovery Center. Dr. Rabi, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Is it absolutely crucial, do you think, for everybody to have that moment where they realize they have a problem?
I think so. And if not, that's where intervention can come in and where family members say enough is enough or you need help. But without that moment, the client can't do the leap of faith into hope, into change, into making the life that they want to have and kind of got destroyed by their addiction.
Right. Because I wonder, I've often heard from people as well who tell their story. I heard this from somebody a couple of weeks ago where they said they went for help, but, even when they first got there, they didn't think they had a problem. They really went because their family members told them to.
Mm-hmm. Without the enough is enough moment that actually happens to the person itself, change really can't happen, because change is an internal decision to say, I'm good enough and I'm worth it. So without that, the external motivation may get people to the door of a recovery center or into a doctor, but it won't have that enough juice or oomph to actually go through the whole process of recovery.
Is everybody's moment different? Like some people have to hit rock bottom, others maybe not.
I hope not everybody have to hit rock bottom, and we don't recommend that because it's horrible and awful. But yes, it is different for some people. Some people actually come to the Orchard and take another 2 weeks to still work on their resistance to change or work on the level of depth of their denial. And for some people, they come in and they just totally surrender into the process.
What is that like then, that first meeting that you have? How critical is it to their future success?
Well, we try our best to make the clients feel safe and heard and seen and cared for, because without that, there's no way they're going to trust us. And we do that in many ways. Part of it is just hearing them in the beginning, really hearing their stories, hear their pain, and telling them we understand, because some of us went through this as addicts and alcoholics, and some of us are in this field for many years as professionals. But it's also a community. When you go to a treatment center, you get the community of people who get you and are not going to judge you. And once you hear other people telling their stories, you could say to yourself, okay, I'm not just weird and strange and different. This is happening to other people, and that's really calming for people.
Right.
Yeah.
People resist the acknowledgement, though, of addiction, don't they? Because they spend a lot of years probably justifying their addiction.
And because there's so much shame and guilt involved in addiction and alcohol. And also because your brain doesn't want to stop. Your brain is sending you messages that you should go on, even in the price of destroying your relationships, even in the price of destroying your own body. And so it's not only that you're working against the biology of yourself, but on top of that, you're working against society who's telling you that there's something wrong with you if you admit that. In some cases, it's getting so much better than it used to be 30 years ago. And the actual admission that there's something wrong, because we're so scared to ask for help sometimes.
Right. I mean, I wonder, and you've also invested so much, right? Like you've probably spent a long time telling yourself, they're wrong, I'm right, and then justifying that in your mind.
And you have to get rid of a part of this story you told yourself about who you are, and then start a whole new story. And that's scary for people. Even if it's a mask, even if it's just not really who you are, the investment of time into the narrative of who you are is something that's very hard for people to give up. Because the unknown, even if it's better, it's unknown. And even if my life is not okay and it's chaotic and I'm miserable and I'm confused, at least I know this. It's predictable.
Is one particular addiction more difficult than another? For instance, we've talked a lot about alcohol addiction, and the first time we aired that, it was amazing to me how many responses that we got, because I think alcohol addiction is something that is probably more common, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And also, you can play down because it's acceptable. People go to parties and they drink, and people can say, oh, I got a bit tipsy, and again, it's acceptable. I think compare that to a heroin addiction or other less quote-unquote respectable addictions, then that you see the hierarchy. And yet, it doesn't, to me, as a clinician, it's about what addiction is doing to your life. It could be as simple as any kind of addiction, also sex addiction or shopping addiction. If that behavior is destroying your relationship, it's destroying the funness of your life or your well-being, your ability to think clearly, then we have a problem, and then we need to talk.
So is alcohol then a more difficult addiction to tackle because it's more common and it is somehow people can justify it better?
It really depends on the person and the situation, I would say.
Okay. And everybody, I guess, tackles it differently, right? Because they're all, for different reasons, they have become addicted.
Exactly. And again, if you think about addiction as a coping skill, to avoid your past traumas, to not deal with your pain, to manage your anxiety, then you can understand why people would not want to stop doing that, because then they have to deal with the big, scary emotions that are underneath that. And when you go to a treatment center like ours, like the Orchard, or any other treatment center, or to a doctor or a counselor, we help you understand that your big, scary emotions are actually something you can deal with without using drugs and alcohol. And that's the beauty of going through a program like this, or any kind of program that teaches you your own abilities to get healthy and have the life you want.
Is there an average length of time that it takes to get like successfully recovering?
Again, it depends on the person, but the more the better from my point of view. I've my own PhD research was on relapse prevention, and so much of that had to do with staying connected to people that you trust, getting as much support as you can get in the first 3 months, and then year, and then 3 years, and etc., which includes step work, sponsorships, treatment, doctors, clinicians. Basically, the more the better from my point of view, especially around connection, staying connected to people who are either in recovery or understand your recovery, and keeping on staying open and willing with those people.
Is there a good way to approach somebody? Like if you have somebody that you know that you think is drinking too much, is there ever a good way to have that discussion, like an easier way? Because it just seems so awkward. A lot of people are going to resist, obviously, the first time you tell them, right, that maybe they have a drinking problem. Is there any easy way to do that?
I'm going to take a deep breath here.
That sounded like it.
No, it's not going to be easy, but truth is not easy. That's why, we don't want to say sometimes the truth to each other, even if it's going to be painful. And we do that to people we love. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to go into a big fight with people we care about. And yet, we have to, because we're seeing something that is destroying the people we love, either in ourselves, and we don't want to get real with us, or we don't want to get real with people we love. And yet, we need to do that. How do you do that? Sometimes you need to get some help. You can go to Al-Anon, you can speak to the family doctor, you can speak to a counselor, you can call a treatment center and get support, an interventionist. And sometimes it's just getting real and saying, again, this is not something that is wrong about you. It doesn't mean that you're flawed. You have a problem.
Yeah.
There's tools and experts that can help you.
That is so true. Well, listen, thank you so much for helping us out with that today.
Yeah, no worries. My pleasure.
This is News Talk 980 CKNW. Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk.